Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Windbreakers podcast. I'm Yahtzee Croshaw. Sorry, someone pressed the wrong button for a second there. And I'm joined by Marty and Jay, as always.
Swamp.
Hello.
And this week, to mark spooky season, we've been doing a lot of things. We've been doing a lot of horror-y streams. We just put out a horror-y themed Battle Masters in which I was fucking robbed. And I'm very mad.
You're really handling it with grace. I have never seen us... Like, that was like the real argument. People arguing over the Battle Masters thing in Slack. That was...
Yeah, it was fire. Like, who was it who suggested that we post that Slack conversation in Discord?
It'd be pretty funny. Yeah,
it was it was heated.
I had a beautiful stack. I didn't just pile things on a fucking table.
You won.
The most beautiful stack.
Anyway. I will die on this stack. You won.
But also to mark spooky season, we thought, hey, we're all banging on about your Silent Hills and your Resident Evils and your Amnesia the Bunkers, but what about those deep cut horror experiences that people might have overlooked? So we thought we'd talk about the more obscure horror games that we're familiar with, and I thought we could start by answering a question that occurred to me over the weekend. What is the first time you remember being scared by a video game in your whole life?
That's a good question.
I was gonna say, so like the first horror game I would say I played was the original Resident Evil when I first got a PlayStation. However, the first game I remember scaring me was there was a Jurassic Park game for the Super Nintendo, and I believe it was just called Jurassic Park, and it had two separate gameplay segments. It had sort of top down. You're exploring the island and opening shit, and then you go into buildings, and it's very rudimentary first-person stuff.
Yeah, I played that one. It's a Wolfenstein 3D style first-person.
Yeah, and I might have played that before I played Wolfenstein or Doom, and I was probably 7 or 8. And that, to me, that might have been my first-person game, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is terrifying. All these dinos are running at me and I don't like any of it. So that might have been the first time I remember being scared of a game.
Jay?
Mine's really dumb. Definitely a child being scared of things. It was I think it's the main antagonist, Pigman from Diddy Kong Racing. The Pig Wizard. There's like the scene at the beginning where he's like chasing the the races at the start in like a cutscene, and like it terrified me. Like something about giant pigmen. What is it with me and pigmen? Me and Beyond Good and Evil in this?
You really do.
The moment there, I thought you were going to say Manhunt.
Manhunt.
Yeah.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Guys wearing pig masks. Yeah.
Oh god.
For me, it was actually a horror game. It was a game on the Commodore 64 called Beyond the Forbidden Forest. Yeah, go hunt for footage of that, Eric. If you're not too busy playing Sonic X Shadow Generations, that is. Where you were a dude in a forest. You could just walk left and right. You could walk into and out of the screen, and you were supposed to shoot arrows at random. There was like one monster hunting you, and you're supposed to kill it with arrows. But if you didn't kill it, it would kill you in the most viciously gory way that I've ever seen on a Commodore 64 game.
Okay.
Like the giant scorpion would just pin you to the ground and just stab you over and over again with its tail, and your guy would be flailing his limbs, going and he'd still be alive, and there'd be blood flying everywhere.
Is this the game that Eric
That's the one, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And the music was while you were dying, it sounded more like a fire alarm going off. Just really discordant.
It's like losing Baby Mario in Yoshi's Island.
And that used to scare the shit out of me.
Yeah,
what part of it scared you?
What do you mean? What part of it scared me? I was being savaged to death by a giant scorpion.
And that was the bit that got you. It wasn't like the atmosphere, or like the.
It was the atmosphere of knowing I could get savaged by a scorpion to death at any moment.
I mean, okay, yeah, fair.
No one likes that. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned. You mentioned Wizpig and Diddy Kong Racing, Jay, because I feel like there was a lot of the N64 didn't have a lot of horror games. Like it had a Resident Evil 2 port, and that might have been it. Like that might have been the only pure horror game.
The GameCube
however,
had Eternal Darkness.
The GameCube had Eternal Darkness, yeah, and stuff that kind of straddles the line, like a Killer 7.
Shadow Man on the N64.
Shadow Man, that's right.
Yeah.
But there was something about, maybe it's because it was the first console I had that had 3D, but there are small elements of a ton of N64 games that scared me in non-scary games, like the underwater, like the eel in Super Mario World, Super Mario 64, not a scary game. That eel scared me.
It's scary.
There's a level in Shadows of the Empire where you're in the sewer and there's sort of like the monster from the trash compactor in A New Hope. And that thing scared me. And part of it was because everything was foggy and there was barely any, your field of view was limited and you could barely see what was 20 feet ahead of you. And also it was just early 3D gaming. So it just felt more realistic than, what I was used to on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. The eel's a great example.
Majora's Mask had a ton of moments that felt horrific in nature, especially at the start where you get body horrored and turned into a little Deku Sprout.
Yeah. That also had that sense of dread of like the timer counting down of like, this moon is getting bigger and bigger and closer, and it's not good.
And that look on the moon's face does not make me think he has friendly designs in mind.
Those things are so important, though. I think it's really important to introduce children to horror or aspects of horror early.
Well, I remember children's horror being a thing when I was a kid. Like, watched all those children's BBC shows like The Demon Headmaster and what was that other one? Well, if we watch like classic Doctor Who, there's a ton of scary shit in that. Like the classic image of watching children's TV in England in like the 80s and 90s was hiding behind the sofa when the Daleks come out.
Yeah, Wurzel Gummidge always scared me. I didn't like the scarecrows, and for listeners, it's a scarecrow show.
He was a friendly scarecrow, wasn't?
I know, but he freaked me out.
Begins.
Yeah, he did freak me out. One of the things that scared me most as a kid was the scene in Fellowship of the Ring when Bilbo reaches for the ring and like does his spooky, scary face. His eyes.
Oh yeah.
I used to like cover my face knowing that was coming because he used to scare me so much.
The reason why that's so scary is that it happens right in the middle of a completely safe context.
Yeah.
Like everyone's at the elf village. Everyone's like catching up again. Everything's chilled out. Then out of nowhere, boom, that face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it also helps that Peter Jackson got his start as a horror director with stuff like Brain Dead and Frighteners. And
he didn't
like every once in a while he throws that curveball into Lord of the Rings where it's like, oh, geez.
And it works.
He started as a horror director. He wasn't what I would call a very psychological horror director.
No. He was kind of schlocky and silly.
He was probably one of the goriest most blatantly gory films you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Brain Dead? Or Dead Alive, as it's called in the US.
With the lawnmower and going like at the end.
Which is funny because the movie probably seems quaint now compared to like Terrifier 3.
It's very overtly comedic splatfest. It's not that kind. It's not Ian Holmes scary face kind of horror.
Yeah, no, Ian Holmes scary face.
Although he also was it him who also directed The Frighteners?
He did, with Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
That was
a long time.
That was also like semi-comedic.
Yeah. But I think it's natural. Like kids, whether it's you go back all the way to like grim fairy tales or scary stories to tell in the dark, those like black and white books that had a lot of kids. Goosebumps, which was huge in the US in the 90s. Kids like horror.
Love horror.
Kids like Five Nights at Freddy's. Like it started a cottage industry, ostensibly, having horror that kids could consume and enjoy and dig into.
Yeah, they love that shit. So let's get back to the what was meant to be the core of this topic: obscure horror games we've enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what the most recent one was. I played through Mouthwashing.
Oh, nice!
Did you ever play that?
Yeah,
I haven't played it yet.
We should have a bite size actually going up about that maybe later today.
Yeah, it's one of those PS1 graphic styled, retro styled sort of horror adventure things where you're a couple of guys who are trapped in space on a doomed spaceship. The captain's been hideously mutilated by a disaster, and it's really good at creating this really visceral sense of being trapped and with no way out. Mm-hmm. And the way it has you, it's just the little touches. The way there are a couple of moments where you have to feed the injured captain painkillers, and you have to open his jaw for him, and there's this horrible sort of wet sound of his jaws parting.
Yeah.
And then there's the sound of cuts to black, and then the sound of you forcing pills down his throat, and it really gets under your skin in places.
Yeah.
Yeah, deeply, deeply disturbing. And also, like you mentioned, part of that burgeoning cottage industry of games that visually call back to the PS1 era.
There is a lot of those, I suspect, because it's easier for some very small teams to make quick concept horror games if they can just hammer it out from very basic graphical assets.
I also think part of it is that that style is synonymous to a lot of people for the birth of the survival horror industry, of the genre, right? Silent Hill are they weren't the first, but they were probably the first really big ones. And so calling back to
Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark was very early 3D as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Clock Tower, the PS1 version. But yeah, I really liked Mouthwashing. It made me feel extremely uncomfortable. Speaking of brand new ones, I'm dropping a link here in the chat. I played a game the other weekend called Crowded Followed. Crowded period followed period, and it is a first person short horror. I don't want to say immersive sim, but you play a homeless man who right at the start you find this guy who's dying, and he has a scary suitcase wrapped in chains, and he says, "You need to get this out of the city," and he's not going to stop following you. And he points and he turns around, and there's this giant figure, kind of like the thing from It Follows, walking towards you. And so you need to get out of the city as that thing is just walking towards you. But you're homeless. And so you need to be like, I need money to get on the subway. And so you part of it is accumulating these things to get on, and then you're on the subway, and it's this crowded subway, and you're making your way through it, and this thing you can see coming towards you. Really short, really effective. Really enjoyed it. Also, it's an asthma mechanic, which I love too. You have an inhaler, and finally,
that was
I feel represented.
That was a feature of the Quiet Place game, wasn't it? And I really thought that game suffered from how utterly ineffectual the main character came across.
Mm. Oh, it had the
not just ineffectual, but she keeps getting people killed because she's so ineffectual. Everyone keeps sacrificing themselves for her because she's like an adorable puppy.
Yeah, exactly. That's how horror works.
This Crowded Followed game does look pretty interesting.
Someone's playing it on a nice shorty.
Just playing it on Yahtzee Tries this week, and I hadn't decided what to play on Yahtzee Tries this week, so sure,
it's only $5 or something. Yeah,
let's bung it in there.
We're bunging
possibilities.
We're absolutely bunging. What when you think back, I'm sure we're gonna name a bunch more games, but do you think we're in a golden age of horror games? Do you think that the genre peaked at some point, or
I think we're in a pretty good age for a low barrier to entry for development, and a lot of short concept games are horror because horror is a theme that can be instantly brought across. You're in a lonely room, it's quiet, something jumps out at you, bam! You don't need to establish characters, you don't need to establish shit, and I assume that's why we see so many short indie concept horror games on
the tools as well are so much more available, not just the act of making games, but to make them effective using things like lighting is easier to do now more than ever.
One of the things I really enjoy doing as a game developer is creating a horror atmosphere. I remember when I was doing Dev Diary and I was making Something in the Sea, I was really enjoying setting up the tone and atmosphere, working getting all the pieces in place. There's something about bringing across an immediate visceral reaction that feels very satisfying as a creative.
Because you want to have that effect on your player or the watcher or something like that, being able to immediately be that through jump scares or applying different effects to put that emotion in them. It feels great. I remember the first time I ever futzed with volumetric fog, like having fog that moves as you pass through it in this thick fog just adds so much atmosphere and nuance to stuff. It's those little touches are really satisfying to put in as devs.
It's like getting a laugh when you're a stand-up comedian. If I hear someone has nightmares playing one of my horror games, that's job done as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, you touched on it. Well, I don't know which one of you said it, but horror, I think, works particularly well in small, short doses. That's why there's so many horror short stories, you know, or horror movies. Generally, the best ones don't have to have a crazy long run time.
There's a surprising number of connections between comedy and horror. Because comedy is another thing you can, like, if you just tell a quick joke in a short little story, that's the format that most jokes take.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're both about creating an immediate physical reaction to something that starts in your higher brain.
Yeah.
With, like a description.
And it's funny when we point to games like, Silent Hill 2, the remake, or the Alien Isolation game from 10 years ago, that one of the main criticisms of both of them is it goes on too long. Sections drags out a bit, like it hurts the pacing because it feels like it's now this 15-20 hour thing.
Well, I've always felt in a horror game, you really want to you want to like threaten the player, but you want to avoid the player actually dying from the threat, at least early on, because if you do that, it immediately kills the tension. Like I was playing when I first played Outlast 2. Like I start the game, get out of the helicopter crash, walk down a path, lady with a scythe showed up, bam, right in the nads. And the game just wasn't scary from then on because I'd immediately seen as bad as it gets. It was a really fucking overly elaborate death animation as well. Blood fountaining up from the hole in my crotch where my nads used to be.
Yeah.
And,
for me, it's sorry, let's carry on.
No, I was kind of done. I was just elaborating on the bloody nads theme.
There's two extremes to this, and I think they both have the same problems. So one for me is Alien Isolation with the xenomorph, and I'll use a modern example of Silent Hill 2 with the enemies. If you allow the player in a horror game to become too familiar with the mechanical function of the horror, it stops being scary, and that can either be through repeatedly bombarding the player with the same thing, like with Silent Hill 2 remake, or spending too much time with the xenomorph so you start to understand it on a mechanical level rather than it being a horrifying thing. It is an NPC running through checks to try and find you, and once you know how to avoid those checks, it stops being the xenomorph. And
yeah, exactly. It's the unknown that scares people. Amnesia the Bunker does that pretty well. I don't know why it tries to get you to do like repeat playthroughs, because I think it's perfect in just one playthrough. If you just because you just don't get enough time to learn to understand the monster.
Yeah, and again, another a pretty short game that I feel like works really effectively with horror. Another game from I believe this was late last year that is also filled with sort of smaller bite-sized adventures is World of Horror. That's the in the chat. That's the sort of Junji Ito inspired visual novel, text adventure, roguelike kind of thing, where you play through a bunch of these small, kind of procedurally generated, slightly randomized stories in a town that again evoke the horror of Junji Ito, who's best known for like Uzumaki.
Very.
I want to play this.
Yeah, I've played it. It's pretty cool. It's a little bit like that Consuming Shadow game I made. It's like a roguelike. You have to like gather resources in order to take on the threat, but it's also very narrative focused. There's like plot branches. It's pretty neat if you're into Junji Ito, certainly.
Yeah, I think it's a better representation of Junji Ito than the current Uzumaki anime, which the first episode is great, and then they just ran out of time and money on episodes 2 through 4.
Yeah.
And the animation just it's wild. I've never seen anything like that.
That's crazy.
And World of Horror really evokes that sort of retro, the uninvited sort of classic horror adventure game vibe.
Yeah.
I like games that I think something that there are horror games, but I also like games that kind of evoke that kind of October, autumn, like nostalgia. And not necessarily going for spooks, but going for or jump scares, but going for just that atmosphere. And I think a lot of puzzle games. On a recent recommendation, Marty suggested I play the Room series, and I 100%ed 4 of them in like a few days because they're really short. I love that kind of just like that tinge of horror. And also, my mother is obsessed with VR at the moment. She's been playing this game called Seventh Guest, which is like a haunted mansion escape.
I remember the original Seventh Guest. I used to have that on CD-ROM.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it a remake, or is it just like a continuation, like a sequel to the original?
The VR game is a remake.
It's a remake, is it?
The old one is very archaic looking, so they had to definitely shoot it up for VR.
Okay. I was really enjoying that.
There's a CD-ROM sequel called The 11th Hour as well, if you're interested.
I didn't know those games were related.
Hour.
I guess I should have. It's the numbered thing.
Yeah,
I guess VR. Have either of you done a lot of horror VR? I'm very, I'm very not VR versed. So
I've done a wee bit of it. I've played like the RE7 demo in VR. I've played Resident Evil 4 in VR.
I guess that one Half-Life Alyx everyone points to as being
on my Quest.
A lot of Half-Life Alyx is quite horrific. Like there's a certain level of like responsibility and this kind of visceral dread you get when something is coming for you in VR, something is coming towards you. We was talking about it in our RE7 streams, Marty, when you were like, Mia coming at you with a knife in VR is just crazy. Like it's such a different experience. And
absolutely.
I think,
it's funny thinking about it. I didn't really get that scared by horror in VR. Maybe it's just me, but the sense of having one-to-one movement and control feels like you're much more capable than you are in like a standard first-person or third-person game where you've got like a limited peripheral vision and only a limited set of verbs. Or in VR, I can just like in the when I was playing Resident Evil 4 in VR, I could run rings around that fucking El Gigante. I just like pass under his leg, says "see ya," and then just like half turn and chuck a grenade. It's easy peasy without having to wrestle with Leon's bloody stupid turning.
What kind of movement were you using? Were you using normal locomotion, or were you throwing your shoes?
No,
like did you teleport or did you?
I was.
Like
I'm a vet, so I don't need to teleport anymore. I just move one-to-one.
Ooh, look at Mister doesn't get motion sick.
Yeah, I still get headaches though, just because you got 2 massive screens like right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'd lost my motion sickness pretty quick.
Interesting. I'd love,
especially compared to those early VR headsets were like nausea. I don't know if you ever got a chance to play like early Oculus stuff, but that was not like there was no sea legs for that. Like everyone got nauseous, and it's gotten way better since then.
I still think they need to work on making them lighter. That's like the main issue for me these days. Like that huge heavy thing hanging off the front of your bunts.
I mean, that's when it's going to get mainstream, when it says light and sort of unobtrusive as glasses, right?
I haven't tried the Quest 3. That's why I haven't played Arkham Shadow that everyone's banging on about.
I heard it's really good. That's like the one I'm like, shit, I really want to play.
I watched some like footage of it in like a YouTube long play. Not all of it, just like a couple of bits. I just wanted to see the bits with Scarecrow in because I like Scarecrow.
Elijah Wood's Scarecrow.
Really?
Elijah Wood plays the Scarecrow in that game.
In this one, yeah.
Interesting.
I tell you what, that scene in Batman Begins where he gasses Falcone in the police cell. I watched that scene by itself.
Is that the one where it's like a normal conversation and then he just like pulls out the suitcase and starts pulling it out? Yeah, that's cool.
Would you like to see my mask?
Yeah.
And then like the creepy music like creeps in.
Yeah.
And while Falcone looks confused. Great stuff.
That's good stuff. Mm-hmm. A couple other recos, sticking on the short story train. A game called Stories Untold dropped in chat from a couple years back by a developer called No Code. It's former Alien Isolation folks who started.
Oh, No Code didn't No Code make Observation?
Observation, yes, and they're also now doing the Silent Hill. They're doing a Silent Hill game, Silent Hill Townfall.
Right. Yeah, they were doing Townfall, weren't they? Yeah. I was hearing about that. Yeah, Observation, someone mentioned it in the chat a while back, but it's that one certainly seems to have gone under the radar a bit, but I really liked it. It's where you play an AI on a space station, but in sort of space station in actual contemporary sense, like it looks like the Mir. And
that sounds cool.
You observe the station through like security cameras. Something's going on, like you're working around like some weird directive you've been given, but that you don't fully understand. And
I like Observation.
Yeah, I like horror based around security cameras footage because it's very effective. If you like switch from one footage camera to another, there's like a burst of static, and then it just switches to the other camera, and there's a monster there. That's a really effective way to deliver that sort of thing. Five Nights at Freddy's gets a lot of mileage out of it as well.
Yeah. Both those games, like obviously have the team having worked on Alien Isolation, makes sense that they're nailing these shorter experiences. Jad recommends Stories Untold to you because it's like 4 separate sort of point and click adventure / puzzle games that are all sort of wrapped around a spooky filter. It's also, I just looked, it's literally 99 cents right now on Steam.
I'm buying it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Definitely recommend that. I always get Observation confused. What was the game that Bloober did with Rutger Hauer?
Oh, The Observer.
The Observer. I always get the two of those names confused.
Yeah, well, Observation's the good one.
Observation's the good one. Observer is better than most Bloober. Again, it's upper tier Bloober.
I mean, I guess.
If you just put everything in a list, something has to be upper tier.
Well, we know what's at the upper tier now. The Silent Hill 2 remake.
Congrats, Mr. Sunderland.
That's about as good as Bloober Team gets. Take that however you want.
And I heard the camera's great and no one has any problems with it.
Shut up.
I agree with you guys. I agree with both of you. And then one of my last recos, which is the game that's actually on the piece of key art, is called Yearwalk. And this was...
I wondered what that was.
Yeah, so this was a point-and-click adventure game that originally came out for iOS. So I played it on an iPad back in the day by Simogo, who did Lorelei and the Laser Eyes earlier this year. And it has that similar sort of like Swedish folk horror vibe to it. But playing it on an iPad, like it made me want more horror things on an iPad, because I remember playing it like in bed and the lights were off and I had headphones and like just like there's a tactile connection between you and a sort of a tablet when you're playing a game, and for a horror thing it works so well because there's certain puzzles in the game where you need to like literally flip the iPad over, like it taps into its gyro sensor, and there's like one particularly great scare that came from that where I was like, Jesus, like this is, I can't imagine, like this couldn't work. The game's on PC and everything, but I can't imagine how it would work in a non sort of handheld setting.
That's so cool. I love explorations of the medium with controls and stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm a sucker for like folk horror in movies and everything. I just think it's like cool. It's cool to sort of get a little peek inside a culture while seeing what scares the shit out of them.
Tasted some cryptids.
Love me a cryptid. Oh my god, give me them cryptids up in me.
Yep, sign me up.
Yeah.
Do you have any more obscure horror games to bring up?
There's
Iron
like
Lung.
What did you guys?
I really like
What did you think of Iron Lung? You played through it the first time, Jay.
So part of me is thinking, did I enjoy it because I was playing with Yahtzee and streaming? Would I have enjoyed it as much if I wasn't? Like, it had some really good scares. Like, the eye is just extremely good, and I'm surprised I didn't see it coming because it's very obvious when you, in hindsight, but like, it was really effective. And I think that's because there's a long stretch of vagary, like seeing twigs and like subtle things that could potentially be stuff, than to see something so overt is like super impactful. I think Yahtzee, you were disappointed that I didn't get spooked, like jump scared by the ending. But yeah, I think the timing was just a little bit off. It was short, sweet. It was really nice. I wanted more. I want to see more underwater stuff.
I think it's good. Like, the reason why short format games work well for horror, because then you can just end with a jump scare and then that's it. I think if a game tries to keep going after it's done a jump scare, that's where it kind of starts to.
Or also the reverse. If I played a game for 20 hours and it ended on a jump scare, I'd tell it to go fuck itself.
There you go. Yeah.
Like the punchline to its joke is a jump scare.
Imagine reading a like 5,000 word book and the ending is just it was all a dream.
Yeah,
it's fuck off.
One thing I wish more games did, and granted we only got it twice in my memory, is I thought it was going to become a big thing where a big AAA game would come out and then they do a weird horror tinged DLC expansion to it, which we got in Undead Nightmare for Red Dead Redemption. We also got in
such a good
Infamous, the Feast of Blood or something, the vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be the start of something, and it wasn't, I guess. Or maybe that thing just became, oh, look, the Ghostface from Scream is a playable character in Call of Duty now. Like,
and Mortal Kombat and Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, they're really whoring out that Ghostface these days.
Yeah. So I guess instead
whoring out all of them, they're all getting whored.
Have you seen those Retro Realms games? There was an Evil Dead one and a Halloween one that came out.
I love Halloween. Like, Halloween's one of my favorite movie franchises ever, and the games look really uninspired to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That it feels like they just slapped a wallpaper onto something.
Yeah, but as someone who also loves Halloween, I think that's because Halloween's selling point is its atmosphere and its direction from, be that John Carpenter or Rob Zombie or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try and translate that into actual mechanical expression, it kind of just becomes a bit derivative. And because if you boil it down, Halloween is very simple and kind of bland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this wasn't trying to be like atmospheric like the Halloween movies. This was just like a side on.
Like 2D action. Like, someone described it as it just kind of looks like Metal Slug. Like, it's Metal Slug with
Metal Slug, but with Michael Myers in it. It just feels like someone like put all the budget into the license and then hacked out whatever they were doing anyway.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Rob Zombie's Halloween, Aaron has an excellent column that went up this morning for members of the Patreon at $5 or above, sort of on why Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is actually like an understated gem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
know.
A
lot of people write them off because of the remakes, right? But
yeah,
they're good.
Well, if you're going to remake something, put your own spin on it.
Yeah. What was
the Bloober Team? Do not put your own spin on things. Bloober Team, you're shit at your own things.
They said they're done making bad games. Did you hear that?
Oh wow!
I'm glad they've decided that.
Oh well, thank goodness they've decided to stop making bad games. What a good career move!
I thought it was
Speaking of games people assumed would be bad but are actually pretty good, what was that game that was the movie tie-in to the Tom Cruise Mummy movie that was actually pretty legit?
Remake?
Oh yeah.
Meant to be pretty good.
Yeah, but better than the Mummy movie.
Yeah, certainly. Thank goodness something that came out of that was good.
Yeah.
Could only get better, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I believe some of the folks who worked on, I don't know if this was a Way Forward game, I think. So like it has like platforming action pedigree to it. Talented devs.
Yeah, Way Forward were the Shantae guys.
Shantae guys. Yeah, and I think they've done a couple like decent licensed platforms.
I looked at their list of games they've made. They've done like millions of games. They've been at this since like the late 90s.
Yeah.
Shantae's like their only original IP. Everything else is adaptations.
Keeps the lights on.
Yeah.
Imagine being a dev and getting given this IP. They're like, make a game off of this. It's like, what?
It's also funny because it was like a sliding doors moment where, you know, a lot of folks thought, man, like Tom Cruise, who's like oftentimes box office gold in a Mummy movie, kicking off a new like shared universe of spooky monsters. This could be it. Maybe we'll make one for all of these characters. And the movie came out and bombed, and they were like, we're not doing any of this.
Yeah, fuck that.
Oh well,
we're getting rid of it.
Back to making fucking Troll Pets 3D for the DS.
Yay.
One last game I want to give a shout out, which I clicked and was mortified to see that it has mixed reviews on Steam. Well, that's Reset. Never mind. It's actually very positive now.
Sometimes they do that because people don't like the latest update, you know?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. This was a game that came out 11 years ago in 2013. It was a 2D, I would say a puzzle platformer similar to Portal in that you go into a bunch of singular rooms.
This.
Yeah, and it's called the Swapper, and the whole conceit is you are on this like derelict space station, and you have a swapping gun to where you ostensibly shoot and create a clone of yourself, and then you are able to transfer your consciousness into that clone. And so you control kind of both bodies at once, or up to 4 bodies at once. But your actual, like, your player consciousness is in one of the bodies. But as you solve these puzzles, again, these like, and it slowly rolls in elements like Portal does, you need to start sacrificing like your clones, and your clones could die as long as it's not you who's the clone, then it's fine. But like you start thinking, you're like, what is this thing that's dying? Like, I'm creating a clone of myself, and I'm able to put my consciousness in there. So what is this thing that is dying?
What is Soma? What is the human puzzle game?
Yeah, very Soma-ish. Yeah. But yeah, really great, really great puzzles. Very cool art style. I just don't like the devs. If you click on their name, they just don't exist.
Yeah, like I'm just gonna shout out. I'm just gonna like emphasize the shout out to Soma because I wish those developers would do more than just Amnesia games. Because the last time they did something that wasn't Amnesia, they did Soma, which was really good. And I wish
the Amnesia games have sold much better than Soma.
Probably. I mean,
they got more mass appeal,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they got PewDiePie bump, didn't they?
I mean, that's sort of the rise of indie horror, right? Coincides with the rise of Twitch streaming, and like horror is just that genre that is tailor made for watching people play and get scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we start on these super chats then?
You know what? Some of these chats, they look genuinely super.
All right then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dr. Theo, member for 9 months in Tipjar, gave $5 and says Psychopomp Gold just recently came out and it looks right up my alley. It's an exploration of a fucked up world with apparently no jump scares. You know, the word psychopomp is an old word that used to be used for someone who shepherds you to the afterlife.
Like Karen?
Really?
Karen?
Yes.
Karen Ferryman?
Yeah, like Karen Ferryman would be an example of a psychopomp.
Psychopomp. Wow. What's the etymology of that?
I have no fucking clue.
I'm going to look that up. That sounds fun.
Psychopomp and circumstance. This game looks really cool. I appreciate the recommendation. I'm putting it on the wish list.
Huh.
Hell yeah.
So it looks like you got like it looks like a first person game, but you've got the jaw trap from Saw stuck to your face.
It seems like it. Yeah. It also says Psychopomp is back, which I'm like, I didn't know Psychopomp was a thing.
Okay.
Psychopomp was here and then left and is now back.
Sorry, Psychopomp. I didn't realize you were here.
GeoTony13, member for 11 months in Tipjar. Thank you very much. And then Will Cooling gives £2 and says, William is the world's cutest baby and daddy loves him.
Was that you, Will? Did we... very cute baby, Will?
Did you have a baby called William named after yourself, you narcissistic git?
Or maybe William was the cutest baby. We don't know.
Yeah.
Who will be the baby of the year? Little Taffy Tubbins.
Squirtle Squad 420 gives $2 and says, Half-Life head crabs will always be jump scare machines.
Yeah.
They seem really bad at latching onto your head, though. They seem to be really good at it when the scientists are concerned.
What is we touched on it earlier. How do we feel about jump scares? Are we just out on jump scares?
My feeling is that a jump scare in a horror is the equivalent of the fart joke in comedy. Or the slapstick joke in comedy, in that they can be pulled off very well. Sure. You can get a really big laugh from them or a big jump from them. But if you're reliant entirely on them, maybe you need to work on your craft a bit.
There's a horrible middle ground for me. Like it's either if you set them up with atmospheric music and the setup of the environment, I don't like them because I know they're coming and then the punchline doesn't work. It's like a joke that I know the answer to, right?
No, I'm with you on that. That's why I've never liked Five Nights at Freddy's games.
Yeah, but also
just makes me anxious.
Yeah,
I appreciate jump scares that genuinely take me by surprise, like old Bilbo.
I don't. If they come out of nowhere and they genuinely get me, for some reason I find it more cheap. I find it cheaper.
You're like mad that they got you?
I'm mad that they did it. I'm like, but there's this middle ground where it's like I'm in that correct mind space to be on edge, and then they get me, but it's not like completely out of nowhere. And that's the sweet spot, but it's very rare to actually have that hit for me. I'm mostly in the I don't like them camp. I prefer a tense horror atmosphere that builds to something narratively horrific rather than something being, it just jumped out of me and my like fight or flight response got triggered.
The jump scares across Silent Hill 2 remake, particularly in the form of the
mannequins,
legs, oops, all legs. By very quickly, they just started to get laughs from me because first off, like their AI is very funny in terms of like where they tried to hide, and sometimes they're really good at hiding, and other times it's like that's a really awful place to hide. Like you are so visible, like your whole ass is sticking out from behind that TV. I can see exactly where you are.
Yeah.
But that was definitely one of those if used sparingly as a seasoning, it could have been done well. But by like the 100th time, I'm like, I'm just like numb to this. Even if the jump gets me, it doesn't leave anything with me.
In the OG Silent Hill 2, your introduction to mannequins is in the room with the flashlight. You pick up the flashlight, you put the flashlight on your chest, and it illuminates what was behind the dummy, which turns out to be a mannequin monster that comes to life and attacks you.
Yeah.
It's the same in the remake, but when the mannequin comes to life, there's a little musical jump scare sting. Ring! And that's when I first rolled my eyes and realized I was in for a bit of a dumbing down.
In the original, the mannequin does do a little like scream thing, but it doesn't have that cheesy like horror like shing. They do really lay on thick.
Mm-hmm. The kind of musical sting you get that sounds like someone sitting on a piano keyboard.
Yeah.
Long. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, my first video game scare, the Re-Dead scream in Ocarina of Time. Oh,
that's a great one.
Yeah.
My fully emblematic this week is Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And there's Re-Deads in that, and they're a pain in the ass.
They are a pain in the ass. How do you beat them? You just throw a bunch of snakes on the ground. That's how you beat everything in the game. Spoilers.
No, what I found is that other undead monsters are immune to the scream. So I would just drop those mummy dudes to take care of Re-Deads.
Love a mummy. We don't have enough mummy games.
Besides Mummy Demastered.
Apart from the mummy.
Brought up.
I want like a real I want a game where I'm exploring a pyramid and it turns out I unearth a mummy.
I want a Brendan Fraser mummy like Tomb Raider-esque.
How great would that be?
I'm sure there's mummy monsters in one of the Tomb Raider games. Also, there's a Egyptian-themed pyramid level in Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, which you can play on the DS remastered re-release they just put out.
Okay, I like that. I like a nice pyramid level.
There you go.
The Re-Deads are great. Nintendo's really good at like sprinkling in something kind of fucked up in their otherwise non-fucked up games. Good on you, Nintendo.
Prize Fighter gives $4.99 and says, observations seem to fly over most people's radars. I should probably finish it. The first encounter stuck with me. Well, I guess it flew over your radar as well, Prize Fighter, if you didn't finish it.
I just picked them up
before we even brought it up. So that's great.
There's actually a sale on currently. I just picked up Observation and Stories Untold as a combo for like $5. So
spend the most money during this stream.
It must be the Steam Halloween sale.
Ooh. Oh, it probably is actually.
Spooky. Alex Armstrong gives $5. It says Yahtzee. An indie horror survival game, Project Mist, launches December 12th. Is inspired by Far Cry and Bioshock. It even has Lovecraft monsters and a gravity gun. Well, that just sounds all over the place.
Sounds like a lot of stuff going on here, to be honest. A lot of stuff. Looks kind of neat.
I'll remember you brought it up. Dr. Theo is $5.
Oh, it says here that it's coming out in May. I don't know why. What about Lovecraft? Do you think? Have you ever played any of those like actual Lovecraft games? Was Sinking City or?
Oh yeah, I reviewed Sinking City. That was a weird one. It was made by the same developers as the Sherlock Holmes adventure games. It really feels like they just took a Sherlock Holmes game and set it in a Lovecrafty town, and in a way that it kind of felt really non-horrific. Like some like Deep One fish dude, Innsmouth look guy would tell you to investigate who broke into his office. And then you just go, oh, it was a hideous monster from beyond time and space. Better lock your doors more carefully next time, mate. And it just felt really weirdly uncommented on, all the horror.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, fucking... Hang on. This is happening a lot lately. The chat keeps like crashing and saying my browser ran out of memory.
Oh no. Maybe your browser has Alzheimer's.
How much RAM do you have, my son?
Yeah.
And what browser are you using?
Chrome.
There we go. There's your problem.
There's your problem, yeah.
This video is sponsored by Opera GX.
Doobie-doobie-doo. Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, I think kids love horror because it makes them feel like adults. They're enjoying something a part of them feels like is taboo. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's exactly...
I've told my Cape Fear story a couple times, I think, on here, where my mom had a cabinet behind a glass window of VHSs I wasn't allowed to watch. And when I was like 5 or something, snuck down and watched Cape Fear. It was horrific. It was horrible.
Yeah, real. Do you remember? So do you remember like the first thing you watched? Where you're like, I probably shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah, Cape Fear.
I remember being shit scared by.
Oh god,
I remember being shit scared by the end of Who Framed Roger Rabbit when I was a kid.
God, that's like where the faces melt.
Yeah.
I have one, but it's a little extra naughty. I taped a movie, like I left the VHS player to like tape a specific movie that was on a channel, and it recorded the thing that was on after it, and I can't remember the channel or the thing I was originally recording, but I watched the movie the next day and it continued recording like softcore pornography of ghost, like a ghost porn. So like it was basically just a woman driving around pretending to be with a ghost. And I was like really young and I was like, I shouldn't be watching this. This is bad. And that was my earliest memory of watching something and being like, this is naughty. Like I shouldn't be watching this.
And what was the thing that I could add it to my block list? Obviously, because I don't want to see it. So
I'll see if my mom still has that VHS.
Okay. Yeah, sure she's in 4K just because so I can add the 4K version to my block list as well.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Tsunami Dusha pulls his signature move. $20, no comment.
The tsunami has been douched.
Zaratha, member for 9 months at tip jar. Thank you very much. And then a Wild Josh gives $10 and says, most underrated horror games of the last decade, the Sucker for Love series. When is Marty recording playthroughs of them both? That's that visual novel dating sim where you seduce Cthulhu, I think.
Oh, it's got overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, it used to be part of the Dread X collection because I played the Dread X collection. There was like a little version of that in there.
Oh, sure enough, it is. Yeah, Spookware.
Yeah.
You'd think a lot of those games would have like mixed reviews because post-nut clarity is a thing.
I don't think it's an actual porn thing.
Anything's porn if you try.
Yeah, if you try hard enough. Exactly.
But that reminded me that I did play through Slay the Princess as well, the visual novel, and that's pretty good as well as a horror game. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, games that threaten to kill your last save is scary. That was one of the sanity effects in Eternal Darkness. It would pretend it was deleting your save.
Yeah. Or turning down the volume and stuff. Oh, I love that stuff. It's so good.
Only really works once, though.
Yeah. But most horror things do, right? Like,
Yeah.
once you know the jump scare's coming, that part of the game's fucked. So I'd rather it give me the horror of, oh no, I'm sat on my controller.
Yeah.
Zaratha gives $5 and says, do you want a really scary game? League of Legends. Womp womp.
Yeah. Stop playing.
Yeah. Vote with your wallets and your free time.
So wait, do people not like League of Legends? I thought people like it.
No, I like League. It's very toxic and it's kind of bad for your health.
You know what? It gave us Arcane, and Arcane fucking rules, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's
true. You can all kill each other in League as long as I get my cool ass animated series once every 3 years.
Low Poly Freak gives $10 Canadian. Says, given all the game dev related content you guys do, ever consider hosting a game jam? And thank you for making Dev Diary by far the most inspirational series I've ever watched.
Wow.
I think we have talked about it more than once.
We should do a game jam.
But it would require organizational skills, and some of us can't be asked.
It was one of those ideas we definitely had when we started Second Wind, and we were like, that's a year 2 idea. And now that we're approaching year 2, I'm like, maybe it's a year 3 idea.
I reckon we could do it. Well, we should genuinely talk about this in our meeting today. I might be able to do some organization for that stuff.
Yeah. Also, if you're a sponsor interested in sponsoring, give us money. Think about that.
Yes. Or just subscribe to the Patreon.
Or just give us money. Yeah. Or just mail me money.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, Yahtzee, you might like the big screen VR headset. It's the lightest headset in the market and uses index tracking. Only problem is it's expensive AF.
Big screen.
Is it wireless, though? I think wireless is the road I refuse to turn back on when it comes to VR.
Big screen.
It's so much better when it's wireless. It's so
but the battery life. The battery life is grim. My mum has the Oculus free or whatever, and it's great, but it lasts 2 hours. And it has to charge for 2 hours.
They just need to keep improving the tech. I'll come back to it in like 3 years, see where we are.
This thing is pretty small. It still looks dumb, but it is pretty small.
Yeah. Doran Grossman Naples gives $2 and says, eerie versus scary. Discuss. Well, not much discussion there. Eerie is just the implication of frightening things, and scary is the full-on presence of frightening things, I'd argue.
Yeah. What would you say is a good eerie game? I guess the games generally can't sustain eerie.
OG Silent Hill 2 is eerie. Remake Silent Hill 2 is scary. How about that?
But the stuff comes. What a weird.
Well,
what a weird place.
Did you find the VHS, Marty? Did you get it?
I found guys. By the way, I found the Ghost VHS, and it's great. I'm burning it, but it's great.
Don't you clip that out and take it out of context, viewers?
No. As in, it sounded like what you were saying is eeriness is a feeling until it culminates into something scary. And in Silent Hill 2, even the original, it may start eerie, but stuff comes and
I take your point. Okay, eerie is, what's that game where you're putting together a red string conspiracy board in a spooky basement? A Hand with Many Fingers, I think it's called.
Legit, tell me that because I'll buy it.
Did you make that up?
I'm pretty sure I told you about this before, Jay.
You had, but I hadn't added it to my wish list.
Yeah, it looks like A Hand with Many Fingers.
Oh, I lied. I just looked it up and it is on my wish list. I'm terrible.
You would say that is eerie?
Yeah, I don't think it has much flat out horror presence. It's just like, something might be approaching.
Sure. I think a lot of the early big walking simulators have an eeriness to them, whether it's Gone Home or Dear Esther. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. The sort of like if you're wandering around an empty world and sort of piecing together like what happened before I got here, that has a little bit of eeriness to it.
Yeah.
Dr. Theo gives $2 and says horror versus horror themed. Discuss. Silent Hill 2 is horror. The Halloween town level in Kingdom Hearts is horror themed.
Yeah. Threed in Earthbound, I would say, is horror themed. But Earthbound itself, I would not say is a horror game.
But then Undead Nightmare in Red Dead is horror, right? It's a DLC themed around zombies, but it is in itself its own
like its
entity.
Whole thing. Yeah, like it runs through its DNA.
Yeah.
A horror-themed thing isn't necessarily like scary or horrific. Like, as I say, the spooky-themed levels in a Mario game that has ghosts and pumpkins and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yahtzee will wear a green hat in 6 weeks. Gives €2. And says Doom 1 was scarier than 3 on first playthrough, if you say so.
I didn't play Doom 3 at launch. I was pretty late to that party. Was Doom 3 I remember its big thing was you had a flashlight. People didn't like it.
Doom 3 was all about the jump scares.
What was your because Doom 3 came up before you were doing this for a living, right?
Yeah. Like that, what would that have been, like 03, 04?
Oh yeah. Then? Okay, so yeah. What was your did you play Doom 3 right away? Like where did you kind of fall in it being a fan of Doom?
I played it a little ways down the line, and it was very dependent on monster closets to create tension. Like, you couldn't pick up a fucking single health kit without a wall flinging aside to reveal a zombie.
Yeah.
It was all about making you have to trade visibility for the ability to fight, because you could hold up a flashlight or you could hold up a gun, but not both. It was a point of contention for a lot of players.
Sure.
That's why I refunded it.
There was a mod for it called the duct tape mod, where you could just duct tape your flashlight to your gun, and everything was fine.
There you go.
And they added like that feature to like the re-release from a few years back, the BFG edition, I think. But turns out a lot of the levels were sort of designed around the fact that you were having to swap visibility for better to defend yourself, and the game lost a lot of its teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a contentious one. I think no one denies Doom 2016 sort of got things back on track.
Yeah. It is funny, though, it got things back on track while I would say 2016 and Eternal have just no horror in them. Like,
well,
horror themed, maybe?
It's horror themed.
Like, yeah.
I'd certainly say it's horror themed.
Yeah, but there's like nothing that's scary or really unnerving about it.
No, well, you're not supposed to feel scared. You're supposed to feel like a powerful doom-slaying badass. A superb owner gives $2 and says, Eric will make a jump scare happen now. Oh, wow. He put some actual work into that.
Holy shit, Eric.
I'm impressed.
Well, Eric, you impress me every day. You're great.
Not much of a jump scare when we like literally said it was about to happen right now, though.
See, this is an example of the ones that don't work. They're building it up and then it's shit.
I believe in Doo-Doo Man gives $2 and says, cuss versus discuss. Well, that does make me wonder if cuss, what the etymology of cuss is.
Cuss to swear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like what? Yeah.
To the etymology dictionary. Okay, you talk about something else while I look it up.
I'm a big fan of Discuss, the comment platform. No, I'm not. Discuss is actually a terrible comment.
I'm a big fan of Disco. Let's groove tonight.
Elysium. Did you see that the Disco Elysium team started their new studio and like released the entire manifesto?
Which one?
Like the real team. Like the actual
real team, because a lot of them left and have all claiming. Okay.
Cuss, to say bad words, use profane language, a vulgar pronunciation of curse.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
Discuss.
Discuss. Discussen, to examine, investigate, from Latin, discus, past participle stem of discutere, to dash to pieces, agitate, strike, or shake apart.
Shake apart. That's beautiful. Yeah, shake something apart. That's lovely.
There you go. To discuss as in to break down.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we learned.
Interesting. Etymology, fascinating, isn't it? I'm always a fan of it.
Legit, I love it.
Did you know the word vocation derives from the word for voice because it's supposed to imply a divine calling?
It's like you've been called to,
yes.
To that by a higher power.
I'm a word snob, so I'm an etymology fan as well.
Hell yeah.
You know. Yella, member for 8 months in the Green Gang, says, Javelin versus Discuss. All right, I think we're done with this little riff now, everyone. Very witty.
I don't understand.
That got a laugh out of me, though. I like that.
What's the Discuss? What's Javelin?
The Discuss with one S.
Discus.
A discus. Gotcha. Yeah.
Fucking hell, that discus went right over your fucking head.
Oh, good. I don't want to get fucking hit with it.
Yes, you gotta hope.
Leave a mark.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, do you know any moments in non-horror games that are unintentionally horror-y? Example, Sonic CD's Game Over song in the US soundtrack with haunting laughter. Well, if we're talking Sonic, the fucking drowning music.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't bring that up.
Yeah, that's genuinely terrifying.
That was like the soundtrack of an entire generation's nightmares right there.
Mm-hmm.
I found the part in Resi 5 when Chris punches the boulder to be quite horrifying, and that's not a horror game.
Because it would hurt his hand.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
that he would have to. He's been pushed to those lengths.
Yeah.
Eric, the fact you got that up so quick is the scariest thing of all.
He can see the super chats ahead of time, don't you?
Yeah, but the super chat didn't involve Resi 5.
It was funny. Last week with Gav, Miracle Sound Gav, he was just so amazed at how quick Eric would be able to get these up. But it was like, well, part of it is if he sees the super chat coming, he can queue it up. But like you said, Jay, you just said that.
Well,
Eric, you're a wizard.
If you go to YouTube and just type RE5 boulder punching scene, it's probably the first result.
You know what, Yaz? How about you start producing the podcast and we'll see how quick you can get your B-roll up.
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
You'll just do jump scares all the time.
A Winged Potato gives $4.99 and says, not video games, but Marty's folk horror mention made me want to recommend Severin's 2 All the Haunts Be Ours film box sets.
What?
Don't know what most of those mean.
Okay, Severin is probably a person or a company. Severin Films, All the Haunt BR is a compendium of folk horror. This also looks great.
Ooh, this looks cool.
This also looks great. I was going to say adding it to a wish list, but I don't know what wish list this is. This is on a weird company.
And then gives $5 and says, requesting a sample of every British accent you're comfortable impersonating. Okay, well, let's start with my default received pronunciation voice and let that mutate a little bit to my English Cockney voice. Oh, if apples and pears, get up the stairs.
Apples and pears.
Well, let's since Jermaine's here, let's go to the southwest and say, morning, Farmer Giles. I'm just going down the shops. Can I get you any? Can I get any sheep worming tablets?
Right, me lover.
Let's go a little bit north. Let's go to Wales. Let's go to Wales. Let's go to Wales and talk about shagging some sheep. While we're in Wales and while we're in Cardiff, and let's complain about the rugby team. And
That's
let's go. And now let's go a little bit east and where we find closer to my old neck of the woods, Birmingham, where you can talk with the Brummie accents, which is probably the most hapless of the British accents. But in many ways, similar to the Liverpudlian accent. But the Liverpudlian accent's a bit more phlegmier.
Has he stopped?
He didn't like the Liverpudlian one.
And now we're going north. Let's pop into Scotland for a little bit of a Scottish accent.
Fucking Scottish.
Yeah, where everyone looks like an octopus trying to unhook a bra, etc.
Can I get you? Can I give you a blank map of the UK, and can you put a pin where every character from Metaphor v Fantasio is from?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because they're all like all their accents are pulled from somewhere around there.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't done Yorkshire yet. We'll put kettle on, mother. Let's have some Lancaster hot pot.
A little cup of tea. Okay.
Classic cuppa.
I think that's all my English accents. I could do Irish. We could do a bit of Irish as well. That's not British, of course, but we could say we're from Northern Ireland.
United Kingdom, yeah.
That works. Yeah, that's the United Kingdom. And then we could go to Australia, mate. Let's go to Australia and play some Australian rules football. And watch an episode of
You're quite good at accents, Yaz.
I record my own audiobooks. You got to try to make every character unique.
Yeah, I've heard shit audiobooks though. Like you're pretty legit at it.
Well, and then perhaps since we've done Australian, we could slightly tweak it and be in South Africa.
South Africa.
Hello, I'm from South Africa. Kill the blacks. Apartheid, etc.
There you
go. All right, I think that's my entire repertoire.
Yeah, it's good. I can't improve.
No idea what's happening right now.
And Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says Luigi's Mansion. Oh shit! Hang on. just lost it there.
Did you lose all the blood like in your head from those accents? Was that why?
Luigi's Mansion, horror arcade, or action adventure? It's whatever you want it to be, Alex Armstrong.
Oh my god.
Is Luigi's
Big shout out to Luigi's Mansion, honestly. Like, absolutely adore those games.
Yeah. I mean, it's not horror arcade. Like, there is a Luigi's Mansion arcade game where you have, like, you sit in a booth and you have your arcade gun, like your suction gun. But, I mean, I would say Luigi's Mansion isn't even horror themed. I think it is a horror game just for kids, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's not horror themed. It is horror in my mind. It is.
Yeah.
It can be both horror and horror themed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a spooky Halloween game.
Mm-hmm.
Red Dwarf 42 gives $4.99 and says, shout out for horror dark comedy game Lucius. Being maybe a demonic kid killing people is funny. I promise I'm not a psychopath, maybe.
Definitely.
Do you know what Lucius is?
Nope,
Never heard
of that.
Oh, I think I just Googled Luscious. Whatever. Whatever, never going to find out what this game is.
Hang on, I'll look on Steam.
Yeah, is that the game that Eric just brought up? Because that doesn't look like a baby killing.
Oh, it's got 2 sequels.
Sim.
Unless it's like it's a religious game. One Evil Child.
It's like a video game adaptation of The Omen, if you remember that.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
No, I haven't played any of those.
It looks religious.
It looks like it's trying to be like, it's like Yandere Simulator, but with The Omen by the looks of it. Anyway.
Oh my god.
Ryan Betts gives $10 and says, there's a horror game reviewer called The Mason Scale who has a plethora of insightful horror game review stroke essays on his YouTube channel. As a Patreon supporter of you both, I'm dying to see a collab.
Ooh.
He knows where to find me. He could fight me any evening he wants. I don't know who they sound great.
I hadn't heard of The Mason Scale, but I'm always on the lookout for good YouTube video essays to listen to in the background of things.
Same.
The Mason Scale.
The numbers, Mason.
Oh, the first result is a review of Resident Evil Revelations. I remember that.
Ooh.
That's the one where your psychic lady has like one leg missing from her wetsuit for no particular reason.
Yeah, why is that happening?
Because it's cool as shit.
Because it was made the outfit slightly sexier.
And also, what if I just like having a wet left leg? Get off my case.
Yeah.
Listen, because gooners need horror games too. There's a couple really great horror centric YouTubers. Sphere Hunter's great. Eurothug is great. Max Derritt is great. A lot of great spooky folks.
Sovereign gives €10 and says, I sometimes find horror sections stroke levels in non-horror games can sometimes be more effective than straight horror. Probably because of the contrast in tone, plus you're less prepared for it.
Yeah, I think the prep thing is pretty big.
Well, people wouldn't remember the Shalebridge Cradle level from Thief Deadly Shadows so much if it wasn't like the one horror chapter out of an otherwise not horror-themed game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even some of the supernatural stuff that occasionally pops up in Metal Gear, Death Stranding. That feels kind of spooky. And
I just got through the Black Ops 6 story campaign, which just has a horror level, actually more than one horror level out of nowhere.
How does it frame that?
I don't want to give anything away because I'm reviewing it next week. But it's like, if you could imagine a game that tries to be a different game in every individual mission, that's the Black Ops 6 campaign.
I haven't finished it yet, but I kind of like that. I kind of like that every time I load up a new mission. It feels like a curveball of like, who designed this? Like, what's the thought process behind this?
It sounds a lot better than it was in execution, if you ask me.
You know what? I just like going back to my KGB mansion and solving a bunch of mystery puzzles.
I solved all the mystery puzzles. They weren't that hard.
You get $1,000 at the end.
Yeah, to spend on having slightly less recoil.
I love it.
Where was I? Fucking chat keeps crashing. Stop it.
I believe you're on Dr. Theo now. $2.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Theo gives $2 and says, by the way, Buckshot Roulette is getting multiplayer soon. crazy.
Well, we've talked how horror. I guess we've posited that horror doesn't work once you introduce multiple players into it. Obviously, there's a ballooning industry of horror-centric co-op games.
I think I think asymmetric multiplayer works in a horror context, like the Friday the 13th game.
Yeah, Dead by Daylight.
Yeah,
but you have your Phasmos, your content warnings, your
Lethal Company works. Lethal Company works pretty well as a horror game.
Yeah.
Again, it's because of like how you frame information, right? I think Lethal Company works because of the way it restricts communication. I think through its voice and chat and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think my point was that narrative-based horror doesn't really work in a multiplayer setting.
Yeah,
but this is all like gameplay-focused horror, like organically created horror moments. That would be a perfect example of a game that went to shit because they added multiplayer to it.
How about Dead Space 3? What a dismal.
Fungus Finder gives $2 and says Dark Forces is scary as a kid because of low visibility.
Yeah. Low visibility, absolutely.
You say so, yeah.
I feel like so many of my earliest scares were because I just couldn't see 50 feet in front of me.
Well, that's just being scared of the dark. Everyone is as a kid.
I guess it's true. Yeah.
Will Cooling gives £2 and says, I'm William Cooling 4. My son, Ickle Wickle, is number 5. Well, have some fucking originality, man. I changed the fucking record.
5.
I appreciate that. What if you name your next kid Keel Wooling?
Ah, there you go. Mix it up. There's nothing stopping you from giving your kid a completely different surname to your own. There's no law saying that they have to have your surname.
Name them LeBron. They're not LeBron James.
Not in this country. You can write whatever the fuck you want in the birth certificate. You could even like say their first name is Doctor just to confuse people.
President.
President.
Well, this was like a plot point in Catch-22, wasn't it? Major.
Yeah, major. What's your vector?
Ryan Betts gives $5 and says, I sometimes enjoy games where the horrifying thing is funny, e.g. pineapple on pizza. Also, games where the horror is all in your mind, e.g. Anatomy.
What's Anatomy?
I don't know what Anatomy is.
Remember The Anatomy?
No, fuck off.
That was your show.
It was, and I changed it for obvious reasons.
It's a game by Kitty Horror Show. Who is there's also like when we talk about indie horror, like all the games we mentioned have pretty much been on Steam. There's like deep cut indie stuff that is only on like itch.io.
Yeah. If you want to really swing your obscure reference penis, that's like the open mic night of video games. itch.io.
Yeah, it is. That's a great way of putting it.
I just wish it was easier to just buy it and play it without having to fiddle stuff on Steam Deck.
I pretty much only play the stuff you can play in browser on itch.io. Calabrial gives $9.99 and says, don't know if anyone brought this up yet, but I highly recommend Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass, a horror JRPG inspired a lot by Earthbound and the Nightmares of a Child. Absolutely kick-ass soundtrack too.
You know what's funny? Yeah,
Sounds
definitely
cool.
looks Undertale Earthboundy. Earthbound is one of my favorite games ever. If I'm not replaying it, I'm just thinking about wanting to replay it. I don't think I've ever really gotten into any of the Earthbound inspired games. Part of it is I still haven't played Undertale, but like there's that whole subgenre of games inspired by Earthbound that I don't know. It's just like
Lisa the Painful.
Amori
this thing.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just a snob.
Maybe. Mayank Destain gives 179 rupees, I think, and says OG Resident Evil 3 demo scared the heck out of me.
Yeah, Nemesis was just a cool thing.
Well, apparently, yeah, people keep bringing him back for things.
Yeah.
He's a Dead by Daylight DLC as well.
Yeah, but kind of that the same sort of fear as like It Follows or even like Terminator 1 of like this thing walk through walls to get me, and there's nothing I can do to stop it.
Looming threat. Yeah.
It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bribed. It can't be threatened. It doesn't eat and sleep, and it absolutely will not stop until you are dead.
It's so effective though, because I got the same thing from what's his name, Pappy from Resi 7. Like, I hated it mechanically because I just wanted to be able to do the puzzles and stuff. But every time he got near me, I was like, it's effective. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where it can be annoying in the moment. And then when you look back on it, you almost remember the fond parts. And like the annoying stuff kind of melts away a little bit.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, off topic, we all know your love for the early Paper Mario games, but did you like the first one? Also, any love for SMRPG and early Mario and Luigi games? I do like Paper Mario 2 an awful lot. It's one of my favorite GameCube games. Although I'll be honest with you, I never played through the first Paper Mario because I never had an N64.
I think Thousand Year Door is just it, but better in every sense.
But for me, the ingredient that makes Mario RPGs work is always when Bowser is a playable character and not the villain. So in Paper Mario 1, I know Bowser is the villain, so I don't have much interest.
Yeah. I've never played any of them, so I'd like a recommendation on where to start.
You know what?
Play Paper Mario 2. It's really good.
Thousand Year Door. Or wait a week and a half, because you know what's coming out? Brothership.
Oh,
you want to join me on the Brothership?
I do want to play that. It does look good.
It looks really good. Looks nice.
Yeah.
I love Super Mario RPG for the Super Nintendo. I don't have the same fondness for the Mario and Luigi series, but I just also haven't played them all. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the Mario and Luigi series, the problem with that is they took the timed hits thing that works in Paper Mario so well, and they just sort of kept escalating it.
Yeah.
So by the end of it, you had to do these 19 button pushes to like pull off these super attacks, and it was getting kind of obnoxious.
Yeah.
Morberticus gives €5 and says, when I finished Silent Hill 2, I immediately ran out and bought a copy of Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Yeah, apparently that was one of the influences for the plot of Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Story's still really good. Silent Hill 2 story? Damn.
I wonder if it's as timely as it was when it came out, because I think a lot of big developers would turn their noses up at a straight man and wife dynamic, because I think that would be too traditional for a lot of developers these days.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw what happens when you make Silent Hill 2 these days. You get Signalis, which is about robot lesbians.
Yeah, or you get the parental story of like, any one of those 10,000 dad games.
Yeah, dad games.
I mean, I think just part of it is less like it wouldn't hold up in today's society, but more of just it felt really unique in the gaming space in 2001. There just wasn't a lot of there just wasn't a lot of stuff coming beforehand that was doing that or like delving into those sorts of issues or emotions. And now it just feels like you can't chuck a rock without getting a game that deals with it in some way. None of them, very few of them, as well as Silent Hill 2 did. But what's this robot lesbian? Signalis. That was a sort of a horror throwback sci-fi game that came out a few years ago that was inspired.
I have friends that really love that game.
Yeah,
it's very Silent Hill
about it,
inspired.
Right?
No, I was sort of bounced off it because it had a really obnoxious inventory system, and it did feel like it was just ripping off a lot of notes and themes of Silent Hill 2 without really, understanding what made them work.
Which is like a sin for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Omega Minus gives $5 Canadian. It says, Faith the Unholy Trinity is my go-to for an unsettling Halloween game. Yeah, I've seen those.
Is that the Mortis one? Mortis.
Yeah, they're made to look like sort of really old school graphics.
Really interesting story. Wendigoon has a really fascinating video on this game. It's like 5 hours long, just dissecting the story. It's really good watch. If you're looking for something to listen to go to sleep this Halloween, I recommend that video.
There you go.
Or just play it.
Yeah. Apparently it's It's quite snacky by all accounts. Names Not Fits, member for 3 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. And then BS Marsh gives $5 and says, Jamate, have you seen the WoW documentary, The Remarkable Life of Ibelin, yet? It's on
I
Netflix.
have not. This is a documentary about a parent's retelling of their child who had, I believe, a muscular condition that I think took their life, and they had effectively a secret life in World of Warcraft. And it's a documentary about that and how games, and especially games that put us into social settings, can allow us to live different lives and experience things we wouldn't otherwise. I have not seen it, but it is on my list because it looks incredibly heartwarming, and it's close to my heart because of WoW. So yeah.
Speaking of movies in or about games, there's a movie that's screened at a bunch of film festivals that's apparently really good called Grand Theft Hamlet. And it was during the pandemic, a group of pals who would hang out in Grand Theft Auto Online decided to just stage the entirety of Hamlet inside of Grand Theft Auto Online.
That's
amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Man,
very, very much seems like one of those pandemic things of like, well, fuck it. What else are we gonna do?
Let's do Hamlet. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that it's screened at film festivals, and I think it's coming out later this year.
I feel like that would have been a performance that would have been very easy to sabotage.
Sure. Yeah. You start firing rockets at them.
Yeah. Just plow your car into them like it's a fucking Black Lives Matter protest.
Jesus.
Camja Ninja gives $5 and says, my first game scare was in non-horror Deus Ex. Icarus is looking for you on all the terminals. Then it changed to Icarus found you. Weed my pants. Yeah, I remember that.
I don't get it.
Very weird.
Spookums.
Deus Ex has this weird tendency of getting like weird horror themes at the end. Human Revolution does that as well, with the final boss that is like screaming blindfolded women in a machine.
Well, I don't get the Icarus thing.
Do you remember that?
No. I don't even think I've ever fully played.
Probably best that you don't. Then.
Well then.
Gal Ben Ari, welcome to Tip Jar. Thank you very much. And then Sussy Guru 2000 gives €5 and says, what do you think of flashlight batteries that run out after barely a minute when they should last for hours these days with LED technology? Well, that's game mechanics for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want,
I've got headband flashlights at home that I use to walk the dog during the winter months when it's dark at night.
Yeah. Same.
I don't see those in games very often.
Yeah, I mean, I think
they've got rechargeable batteries. You plug them into the wall and they charge up.
I just think with art, you need to there's a certain suspension of disbelief of
yeah,
I don't need to, why is the character going to shit? This movie doesn't have enough scenes where the character's shitting.
I mean, 90% of classic horror films sort of don't work if the main characters have cell phones.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with Seinfeld plots.
Yeah.
Can't give them cell phones.
I don't know. Whenever I'm in a game, usually, because I have an example of this not happening very recently, if I see a resource that I need to manage, like hunger meters, I'm not a big survival game player. I don't like having to repeatedly refresh or those resources, but the game that is the exception for me at the moment, that is my new obsession, is Hard Space Shipbreaker.
Oh, I love that game.
I'm in love with this game. Every moment I have free, I'm breaking ships down. I love that game so much. So good. And it has oxygen and fuel that you have to manage and go back and restock. I'm in love with it.
Placeholder gives $5 and says, not a horror game, but Arkham Asylum is a game I usually play around this time of year. The atmosphere of the asylum screams Halloween to me. Yeah,
horror adjacent,
especially the scarecrow bits.
Yeah, in terms of open world games, that might be the closest the closest we've gotten to sort of horror open world.
I would argue that it is a horror game. I mean, Arkham City.
And you are the monster in a lot of it, because in the certain,
the
combat encounters.
The original Arkham Asylum
Yeah.
sort of has like the framework of a survival horror game.
Yeah.
That was something I liked about the Alien versus Predator games, is that each if you played the Xenomorph, you were effectively you were the monster, stalking around the vents going for the Marines. But then the Predator and the Marine campaigns were very, very different.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed the Xenomorph ones the most because I loved scurrying about being the villain. It was great.
Yeah, it was like the Xenomorph is the glass cannon stealth assassin game.
Yeah.
The Predator is just like the hardcore badass, can kill things really efficiently game. And the Marine was just your standard sort of alien FPS, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Susiguro 2000 gives €5. It says, did you know that deer just used to mean animal in the generic sense, like it does in other related languages? I did not know that. How interesting.
I didn't know that.
Did you know that the word samurai and the word knight both derive from an original word that means servant, in an interesting case of linguistic parallelism?
Whoa.
Do you think it was just a coincidence, or do you think
It was a coincidence, but they both in both cases, knights and samurais are both expected to fight under a master.
Yeah.
So, like, the original word used to mean just like a lowly servant, but then it came to when it gained an association with chivalry and like warriors fighting for a master. They gained
servant of the realm.
Yeah, more of the modern meaning, more like civil servant, I suppose.
Interesting.
I think it's interesting.
I thought
it is.
Great fact.
Frequency gives $4.99 and says, with the archive on PE and PS1 games coming back, was wondering if there was any love for Galerians. Played a lot like RE, but with a sci-fi twist.
Galerians.
I've never
heard
actually played
No, I didn't know that
Galerians. I've watched some YouTube videos about it. That was a 1999 survival horror game with a slight it was like sci-fi.
Oh yeah,
for PS1. Japanese developed relatively good scores, and I know it has like kind of a cult following to it. PS1 had a lot of, outside of even Resi and Silent Hill, you had your nightmare creatures, your Parasite Eve, Galerians, Kudelka. A lot of people were getting into the spookies because Resident Evil and Silent Hill were selling really fucking well. So I think they realized that people will buy these.
Yeah,
all kinds of like abortive survival horror attempts.
Yeah, Dino Crisis, like stuff that
Blue Stinger. Remember that?
Yeah, I actually, you got brought up yesterday during. I streamed a bunch of Dreamcast horror games on my personal channel yesterday. And you got brought up. Apparently, you did a Let's Drown Out on Blue Stinger.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before. It's really dumb.
It's really dumb. The Dreamcast horror games are very dumb. The most impressive was a game called D2. Have you ever heard of D2?
I do remember D2. I've watched playthroughs of both D and D2.
Takes about 45 minutes to start playing.
It genuinely sounds like you guys are just making shit up. Like, these don't sound like games.
I've also played D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die, which I'm not sure that's supposed to be associated.
Be related. That was the launch. That was like a launch Xbox Connect game, right? Xbox One, I guess, Connect game.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And then I also played Illbleed, which is like the rarest Dreamcast game. Which is
that game is mad in a very lovable way.
I played through it and I was like, I literally do not understand the mechanics of this game. And then offstream, I ended up playing a little bit more, started to understand the mechanics, and I was like, okay, they got something going on here. You just gotta like look around the environment for traps and be like, it's like spot the jump scare. So like you have a finite resource in order to try to spot jump scares.
I would advise you to watch a full playthrough of that, even if you can't play it, because it is nuts. There's a chapter where you basically play as Woody from Toy Story, and you fight demonic Sonic the Hedgehog at the end. And if you do like a new game plus, then at the end of the game, the main character has been stripped completely naked, and that's how you unlock the true final boss.
Oh,
because the true final boss goes, "For a naked lady," and then comes out to greet you.
Oh no!
What's this called?
Illbleed.
It is mad.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's
the same developer as Blue Stinger, and then he died.
It's utterly unique. You will never see a game like it.
He made Blue Stinger, he made Illbleed, and then he passed away at a young age. All right.
Sussigeru 2000 gives €2 and says, "Do a Bavarian accent, Yards." I can't. I mean, I could do a sort of German thing by saying V instead of W.
Everything's just
like the last 1,000 years.
No.
Mm.
Is that Arnold? Is Arnold Bavarian?
I'm a Nazi.
Arnold is Austrian.
Austrian.
You have to put that slightly camp tone into the German accent.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, das ist mein Handy. Dipshit the Clown gives $4.99 and says, "Long-time listener, first-time caller. You guys are handsome and clever, and we love you. Thank you. I am both handsome and clever."
Also, absolutely not your first time, because every time I say your name, I get excited.
Dale Mallows gives $5 and says, "I missed the first 66 minutes. Can you please repeat everything? Also, just started We'll Leave the Galaxy for Good. Destroy for Cash was great. Well, I hope you enjoy. We'll Leave the Galaxy for Good as well. Hopefully, we'll have a print version of that out at some point. Need to check with my agent, actually. Remember, if you like the latest book, a review on Amazon goes a long way."
Do it.
And Lastimoses gives 50-somethings and says, "Warhammer 40k can be a good setting for a horror game." What's that one where you're exploring like a spooky space station?
A Warhammer game?
Yeah, the Warhammer 40k game where you're exploring a spooky space station.
I'm sure someone in chat will know. I don't know anything about Warhammer. I know it's just you're a big, thick man with big, thick armor.
Yes, absurdly so.
Warhammer horror game.
Warhammer really does have chode energy, doesn't it?
It does have big, thick chode energy.
Yeah.
I always wonder how ironic it's being at any given moment. Because the original Warhammer 40k was pretty overtly sort of satirical in a way. Very sort of Judge Dreddy in that sort of sense. And then some people sort of took it at face value, and that's a lot of what you see these days.
A lot of people took it at face value.
Yeah.
Most of the fan base.
It sounds like Space Hulk Deathwing is the game you were thinking.
Yes, that's what I meant.
2016's Space Hulk Deathwing.
Names Not Fits gives 50 Swedish krona and says, "My first horror experience is putting in one of my older brother's games at random, getting scared by the opening credits, and running out of the room." Ooh,
what game was it?
Shall we speculate? I think it might have been Eternal Darkness.
Ooh,
that's got like a
all right
opening movie where lots of spooky things happen.
I think it was Diddy Kong Racing.
When Whizpig shows up?
Whizpig, yeah.
Oh, that
when
was
Whizpig. Yeah, it could have been Resi 1. The scene where very early the zombie turns around. That kind of spooked me. First time I played it.
Yeah, agreed.
LOTR fan 193 gives 199 and says, "If you watched MST3K, favorite episode?" My first exposure to MST3K was watching the movie because I found it in like a VHS rental place.
Yeah,
like a long time ago. That was my first experience with it, and I really liked that. And some of the TV shows felt a bit like the gags were a lot thinner on the ground. I think they put a lot more effort with scripted gags in the movie.
That was This Island Earth, I think, was the movie they watched.
Yes, they did This Island Earth.
That was great. Yeah, there was one episode of the show I remember. The movie took place in San Francisco, and for some reason, Mike kept doing a Steve Urkel impression throughout it, which doesn't make sense because Family Matters took place in Chicago. So I'm not sure why he kept doing a Steve Urkel impression, but as a fan of Steve Urkel impressions,
just felt like it.
Felt right, yeah.
Oh. Dipshit the Clown gives $9.99 and says, "Is there any game you've stopped playing because it was too spooky, even as a kid? I haven't finished Alien Isolation because I was playing with my homie, but he moved, and my elemental weakness is jump scares." Yeah, I can never play Five Nights at Freddy's for very long because, as we discussed, I just don't like the sensation of expecting a jump scare coming, and I just get too anxious and I have to turn it off.
Yeah. For the longest time, Alien Isolation was that for me. I couldn't get past the Xenomorph did scare me for the longest time. And then when I came back to play through for a video I was making, I got to that point where it's like, this has been too long, and it was the complete opposite. I was so terrified of it, I didn't want to play, and then I pushed past that barrier, and now this is too long. I'm not scared at all. So it was I had both with that.
Yeah, most of the big PS1 survival horror games. I had an older brother. I have an older brother, and he was really into horror games, and so he bought like the Resi trilogy and Silent Hill and stuff. And I would play them for a little bit and then get too scared. And then when I came back when I was in like high school or whatever, I ended up getting really into horror and just jamming through all of them. So
yeah.
Tsunami Dusha gives $10 and says, in Kyrandia 1, the Fireberries caves had a horror moment where if you enter a scene with no light, a group of red eyes descend and eat you. You never get to see them. Yeah, I remember that.
Like that.
It was part of this whole puzzle maze thing where the whole place was dark, but every now and again you stumbled across a bush with like glowing berries. But with every room transition, the glowing berry would get slightly dimmer. So you had to, carefully, strategically pass allow berries.
Never even heard of that game.
Sounds cool.
Yahtzee will wear a...
Sorry, you might have whisked Nick Warden's.
Oh, so I did. Nick Warden gives $5 and says, late to the show today, but the first game to scare me was Kid Icarus on the NES. There was a Grim Reaper enemy that chased you and had its own music. Ooh. Yes, the same was true of Bubble Bobble, as I recall. There's
a Grim Reaper in Bubble Bobble?
I think so. It used to chase you if you took too long on the levels.
Oh. Do you got Bubble Bobble on the mind? Because you referenced it in your upcoming...
I just think it's a funny name. It's one of those inherently funny thing to randomly bring up.
It is a very funny name. Yeah.
I'm a Bubble Bobble main.
Like, just keep raising it like Kunk on the World, where she keeps referencing Salt and Pepper. It's so funny.
How many times can you say Bubble Bobble fast? Bubble Bubble
Bubble Bubble Bubble Bubble Bubble Bubble Bubble Bubble.
Before it starts turning into the start of that one cover of Blue Moon.
Bubble butt.
It goes ba 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 ding a dang dang a ding a dang dong.
Fucking hell.
Blue moon, blue moon, blue moon. Dip 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 blue 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 moon. Etc. From the end credits of An American Werewolf in London. Forget it.
I watched that the other day.
We had you. We know what you were doing. This is one of the rare moments where I understood your reference.
Okay. Yahtzee will wear a green hat in 6 weeks, gives €2 and says, kiss or dust, disgust. Well, let's just move straight on from that. Fungus Finder gives $2. Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, did I do that?
Urkel's here with us, friend of the show, Steve Urkel.
I love San Francisco.
He's not from San Francisco, he's from Chicago.
And then Names Not Fits gives 20 Swedish krona and says, I don't remember, but I think it was Darksiders.
Oh, it's the first.
Referencing the first one of his older brother's games he put on at random that
I see,
the opening credits. Yeah, I guess that was pretty overtly aggressive.
Demonic. Yeah. I think we learned something today.
Yeah, Yahtzee is obsessed with Bubble Bubble.
Together, and we can chat for an hour and 40 minutes, and then we can all go on with our day. That's what I learned.
There we go. That's something we learn every week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening to the Windbreakers podcast, which we were talking about obscure video game horror experiences and less obscure ones. I was Yahtzee. I was joined by Marty and Jay, as always. Mm-hmm. And if you like my stuff, I have a fully Ramblematic coming out on Wednesday, which will be on the subject of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
You'll need to play that, my God.
I might surprise you on that one.
Game of the year? Question mark?
That's not the surprise.
Oh, no. The October
Game
surprise.
Game of the decade?
Game of forever?
I've also got my Yahtzee Try stream on Wednesday, which I guess one of them will probably be one of the games.
Horror games, yeah.
Why the fuck not?
Crowded followed.
I'm in Adventurers 9 on Saturday as always, and I was in Battle Masters this morning as well, getting fucking robbed by the rules lawyers. I'm sure you'll all agree.
You won.
You know what? Write into your local legislature and tell them that you will not stand.
I will.
For this rule lawyer meddling.
Jay, plug your stuff.
I've been traveling, so I've been a bit light on stuff recently, but I am on a bunch of horror-themed streams. I think at some point there's going to be a Dead by Daylight stream that I'm on, so you can hear me complain about that live. I'm also on an Amnesia The Bunker stream with the dev Frederick on Halloween Spooktober, and also I'm on a stream with our lovely Jess and Marty Sleever, continuing our Resi 7 streams on Thursday. So stick about for some spooky ass streams. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, so the Amnesia stream with the DevHeads crew plus the dev of Amnesia is going to be at noon Central on Thursday. And so then that'll be 2 hours, and then there'll be an hour break, and then Jay, Jess, and myself will be back for Resi from 3 to 5 Central on Thursday, and then normal time for more Metroid Prime.
Boom.
That's great. The best. Yahtzee, you also, and then you got a new Design Delve on Friday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, there's so much. And Yahtzee, you also had a wonderful video that went up over the weekend. Patrons saw it a few months ago, but your special way of remembering U.S. states.
Yes, in which, and cue a lot of comments complaining about the way I pronounce Michigan.
That's fine. You know what? Tell them.
Apparently, it's supposed to be Michigan.
Yeah. Well, they should have put an SH there instead of a CH.
Quite.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, I pronounced Las Vegas wrong, but they wouldn't say how.
You know what? Pronounce it however you want. Words are jazz.
It's just my accent.
Yeah.
That's just how it sounds. I mean, I remember I was doing the British expat panel at the Escapist Expo one time, and we were all talking about Ocarina of Time, and all the American guests, all the American audience members kept giggling. And they were like, well, why do you keep pronouncing it wrong? And I said, we're pronouncing it right. How do you pronounce it? And they said, we pronounce it Ocarina. And I said, that's what we're saying.
You know what? Tell them all to leave their hometowns and see it's a big world out there, and folks talk different.
100%.
Yeah, and then all the normal stuff this week. Later this evening, the Hidden Gem crew will be back 6 p.m. Central, and tomorrow at noon, you got a brand new rewind with myself, Darren, Jack, and Jesse Schwab, sort of as a companion piece to this episode, under the radar horror media that you should watch. Movies,
Let's go.
TV, anime, all that stuff. So good stuff. Yeah.
All right. I guess that's it. Thanks for listening.
We got a sussy guru.
Oh, shit.
You got, sussy?
It says it's pronounced Arkansas, I'm pretty sure.
Little pirate talk there.
€2. Yeah, there you go. All right. That'll be it from us for now. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye, everyone.